country is to decisively defeat the climate hysteria hoax.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
The ability of CO2 to do the heavy work of creating a climate catastrophe is almost nil at this point.
The price of oil has been artificially elevated to the point of insanity.
That's not how you power a modern industrial system.
The ultimate goal of this renewable energy, plan is to reach the exact same point that we're at now.
You know who's tried that? Germany. 7 straight days of no wind for Germany. Their factories are shutting down.
They really do act like weather didn't happen prior to 1910.
Today is Friday.
That's right, Greta. It is Friday, and this is the best day of the week. Not just because the weekend is almost here in a holiday month, but because this is the day the Heartland Institute broadcasts the Climate Realism Show. My name is Jim Lakely. I'm Executive Vice President of the Heartland Institute. We are an organization that has been around for 41 years, and we are known as the leading global think tank pushing back on climate alarmism. The Heartland Institute and this show bringing the data, the science, the truth that counters the climate alarmist narrative you've been fed every single day of your life. There is nothing else quite like the Climate Realism Show streaming anywhere. So I hope you will do us a big favor and bring friends to view this live stream every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Oh, and also like, share, and subscribe, and be sure to leave your comments underneath this video. All of these very easy tasks help convince YouTube's mysterious algorithm to smile upon this program, and that gets the show in front of even more people. Oh, and as a reminder, because big tech and the legacy media do not really approve of the way we cover climate and energy policy on this program, Heartland's YouTube channel has been demonetized. So if you want to support the program, and I hope you do, please visit heartland.org/TCRS. That's heartland.org/TCRS. And you can join other friends of the program who help bring this to the world every single week. Oh, and we also want to thank our streaming partners, that being CO2 Coalition, CFACT, junkscience.com, What's Up With That, and our friends at Heartland UK Europe. All right, let's get going. We have with us, as usual, Anthony Watts. He is Senior Fellow at the Heartland Institute and publisher of the world's most viewed website on climate change. What's Up With That? We have Sterling Burnett, the Archbishop of Canterbury, and his day job is being the director of the Arthur B. Robinson Center on Climate and Environmental Policy at the Heartland Institute. And we have Linnea Lueken, Research Fellow for Energy and Environment Policy at Heartland. And we are very happy to welcome back to the show our friend and fan favorite, Steve Milloy. Steve is the founder of junkscience.com, a fellow at the Energy and Environment Legal Institute, a member of EPA transition team in the first Trump term, a board member at the Heartland Institute. That's a lot to go over, so you can just call him the climate hoax slayer. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, good to have you. I don't want to apologize already to our audience. If there are any production screw-ups, it's all going to be my fault. Unfortunately, well, fortunately for them, Andy Singer, our producer, is on PTO, enjoying a little bit of time off today. So we will do our best to keep the show flowing as well as we can. So without further ado, because we have so much to cover today, let's start off as we like to every week with the crazy climate news of the week. Thank you very much, Bill Nye. And I was going to say hit it, Linnea, but I forgot to ask you to hit the button. So I'm
sorry. Well, you got it. And guys, if I'm slow on getting comments up, or if I miss some questions and stuff today, sorry about that. I'm also helping to produce, so I'm not going to be able to have my eye on the comments quite as much as I normally do.
We will do our best. All right, this first item for today comes from Hot Air, and I have. Oops, I should switch the. What do we got here? Oh yeah, switch our thing. I can't find it, so we'll do it later. Oh, there it is. My apologies. Zillow mellows out. This comes from our friends at Hot Air. Geez, now everything's messing up on my computer. All right. Well, this comes from Zillow, as everybody knows, is the world's most used real estate listing site. They partnered last year with a company called First Street to provide climate risk assessments for each individual property. And those scores were aimed to quantify each home's risk of floods, wildfires, wind, extreme heat, and poor air quality. Those climate risk assessments, as you might expect, affected the price of homes, and people weren't too happy about it. Well, now Zillow is going to pull the plug. Writes John Sexton over at Hot Air. Quote, what prompted this appears to be complaints from the California Regional Multiple Listing Service, which complained about the accuracy of the models by First Street. And here's a quote from a story about it in the New York Times. Displaying the profitability of a specific home flooding this year or within the next 5 years can have a significant impact on the perceived desirability of that property. No kidding. When we saw entire neighborhoods with a 50% probability of the home flooding this year and a 99% probability of the home flooding in the next 5 years, especially in areas that haven't flooded in the last 40 or 50 years, we grew very suspicious. Philip Zariello, a retired hydrologist previously with the U.S. Geological Survey, first began questioning the First Street flood risk scores when he was browsing properties on real estate listing websites and, on a whim, decided to check his own home located on the top of a hill. Quote, my house that I still own was rated a 7 out of 10 risk, Zariello said, what First Street describes as a severe risk of flooding. I've been here 25 years and never even had something that came close to a flood risk. Well, you know, what do you know, Philip Zariello, whoever you are, you're just a hydrologist, but you're at a flood risk because the experts in the climate cult said so. By the way, just to put a wrap on this story, Zillow does not allow sellers to remove the climate risk data on their properties at their own request. So it's kind of like Wikipedia. It's your property, it's your life, it's your story, but you have no control over it. Redfin and Realtor.com actually allow you to do that. So let's get into this a little bit. Linnea, you shared this story with the group this week and on our, messaging to each other. And Anthony said this is huge. Do you think this represents a significant move away from junk science? Yet another instance in which keeping up with the narrative of climate disaster crumbles when it hits the reality of economics and people wanting to have the truth and not having any control.
Yeah, I mean, how frustrating. You live at the top of a literal hill and some random model that obviously can't take into account even topography, apparently, is telling you that your house is in a major flood zone risk. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's run by, what is it, First Street? I think First Street is, there's some kind of a finance company, aren't they?
They're financial advisor firm. They're like a little bit like BlackRock in them.
Yeah. So why would Zillow even care what their opinion on who is in a flood zone is? Like, what makes them an expert on that? They're not. They might. We've got those comments in front of Sterling. Can we drop the comment?
Drop that, please.
We've got an echo.
Oh, it's probably my speed.
My fault.
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay.
Go ahead, Linnea.
We are just all kinds of trouble today. Anyway, no, it's frustrating for everyone. It's frustrating for realtors. The idea that, like a professional hydrologist is going to tell State Street that or First Street that they are completely and utterly wrong with their analysis, and then to have Zillow still not remove the thing, but still getting advice from these guys, even if they're provably wrong, is ridiculous. There really isn't much to say about it other than that it's dumb and Zillow is dumb. So,
well, yeah. Plus that, it's like a pox on your house. And it basically means somebody else's opinion. And that's really all these climate ratings are. Somebody else's opinion basically devalues your house. Good. That kind of a thing. You just can't even think about it as being something you can sell. I mean,
hold on. So just 1 second. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Steve, I keep muting you. You need to stay muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
And maybe come back. Maybe dump out and come back again. There you go. All right. Apologies, everyone. Go ahead, Anthony. I'm sorry.
So, as I was saying, it's just like having a pox on your house. And, why should you let someone else's opinion devalue your home? Particularly since there may be no other correlation to anything else other than this rating by, Front Street. And we have debunked Front Street time and time again for their wildly inaccurate press releases that they put out to the media. We've done that time and time again on climaterealism.com. And I'm glad that Zillow finally saw the light. They must have had so much complaining from customers and from realtors that this just simply doesn't work, and it hurts sales more than it helps them. I would think that they finally saw the light and said, enough of this, we're getting rid of it.
All right, Steve, you can speak.
Yeah. Okay. So, I don't really understand who believes, these climate hoaxers in the first place. They've never been right about anything. Why would anyone think that, they know what the risk of whatever, catastrophe is to your house? It's just ridiculous. And this is just more proof of that. They've never been right. They're never going to be right because their fundamental assumptions are wrong. And, this is, I guess if all this is imploding at once, and I guess we'll talk about that a little later.
Well, what's crazy too is there's entire industry, that's devoted to determining flood risk and flood zones and stuff. There are all sorts of people who are devoted to that particular science. So why would anyone lean on First Street's opinion on that over, the official state geologists and stuff?
Is it First Street or State Street?
It's First Street.
First Street. Yeah, it could also be that First Street is running out of money and Zillow was requiring money for I don't know. I mean, we don't know what the backstory is, but it probably involved money.
Well, it seems to me that the proper entity to determine flood risk is an insurance company, not some sort of third party, climate alarmist outfit that is trying to grift off, these sorts of determinations. And the thing that struck out at me, and I mentioned it in the setup, was how it apparently worked like Wikipedia. I mean, do not look at the Heartland Institute's Wikipedia entry. It's complete garbage. I've talked about this on this podcast a few times.
Unless you want to laugh.
It's unless you want a nice laugh. But the only thing it gets right, I think, is their address. But it might have the wrong address on there at this point. Who knows? But the people that are actually the subject of entries in Wikipedia are 100% completely powerless to correct falsehoods, and it's that way by design. So all of these third-party outfits makes me think maybe I'll trust AI more than I will trust biased people when it comes to this kind of garbage.
Well, First Street has to be profiting from this in some way. My suspicion is they put out reports, and they're paid for these reports. And regardless of whether the reports turn out to be right, they're paid for the information. You would think that someone like Zillow or real estate agents themselves would say, look, we won't rely on someone who keeps putting out this kind of bad, faulty information. And hopefully this is this would be a shot across First Street's bow.
Look, the bottom line is this kind of information does not help homeowners sell houses. It does not help real estate agents. And no doubt real estate agents said, what are you doing? Right.
Right.
A big cloud.
No,
if I live in the Gulf Coast, I'm never going to sell a house again.
To be fair, though, I mean, I want to say this. Look, their job is not to sell houses. Their job is to analyze risk to real estate and market conditions. And why they bought the climate Kool-Aid, I can't explain that. Why Zillow relied on them on the climate Kool-Aid, I can't explain that. But that's what they claim they're doing is this, the climate risk. Well, they're looking at bad data.
First Street?
Yeah.
First Street is just an alarmist outfit. I mean, they're just like an activist group. It's not a legitimate, risk assessment type group. It's an activist group pretending to be some sort of risk assessment operation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking of First Street Capital. My mistake. Ellen Nutella would say, never mind.
Never mind.
All right. Well, let's move on then to our next item, which is, that's the wrong one. So here we go. It is a huge alarmist retraction, and this comes from the New York Times. This is pretty big story. The headline is Top Journal Retracts Study Predicting Catastrophic Climate Toll. In April 2024, the prestigious journal Nature released a study finding that climate change would cause far more economic damage by the end of the century than previous estimates had suggested. The conclusion grabbed headlines and citations around the world and was incorporated in risk management scenarios used by central banks. On Wednesday, Nature retracted it, adding to the debate on the extent of climate change's toll on society. So you hear that, guys? By the way, they buried the lead. There's a debate on climate change. It's now been stated in the New York Times, so it actually exists. That's great. The decision came after a team of economists noticed problems with the data for one country, Uzbekistan, that significantly skewed the results. If Uzbekistan were excluded, they found, the damages would look similar to earlier research. Instead of a 62% decline in economic output by 2100 in a world where carbon emissions continue unabated, global output would be reduced by only 23%. Of course, erasing more than 20, this is from the New York Times. Of course, erasing more than 20% of the world's economic activity would still be a devastating blow to human welfare. The paper's detractors emphasize that climate change is a major threat, of course they do, as recent meta-analyses have found, and that more should be done to address it. But they say unusual results should be treated skeptically. Retractions have become more common in recent years, according to Retraction Watch, an organization that tracks corrections in scientific journals. But they are still rare, amounting to about 1 in 500 articles published. Economists have long struggled to incorporate granular, sometimes subtle impacts of climate change into models that forecast far into the future, especially when combining them with something as complex as the global economy. That's enough. The New York Times goes on to, make pains to say this is really no big deal, this correction. But it is a fact that this paper that was retracted was the second most cited climate paper in media and social media since its release. Thousands and thousands of times, about at least 5,000. But I guess, oh well, never mind. Steve, I'd love to start with you since you're the junk science guy. This is junk science.
Why was this study ever even published? Since climate idiocy began, circa 1990, global GDP is up almost 400%. The notion that someone can predict what global GDP is going to be in 2100, plus or minus a couple percent because of plant food emissions, is just absurd. And if we're going to start, retracting climate studies, there are probably hundreds of thousands of climate studies that have all been wrong that all need to be retracted. That's my sort of general comments. Now, yesterday, and this study that's being retracted came from the Potsdam Institute in Germany. So yesterday, I posted something about weather in Washington D.C. and how global warming's got nothing to do with anything. And this morning, I open up my Twitter and I see that Stefan Ramsdorf from Potsdam decided to reply to that. He goes, "No wonder they call you junk science." Well, I name myself junk science, my website junk science, and so it's my handle on Twitter. It's not, nobody calls me that. But the irony though is that here, the day after this study from the Potsdam Institute, this highly cited study is retracted, I hear from Stefan Ramsdorf of the Potsdam Institute criticizing me when he really should be, asking his institution, what the hell are you guys doing?
A little self-reflection would have been warranted there. Yeah. When that study first came out, guys like myself, I think you, Steve, some others, immediately jumped on it. We saw it. How can tiny Uzbekistan, their economy is nothing in the global GDP. How could the impact on them drive the huge losses these guys predicted? We knew that was wrong. We knew that they had used false alarming scenarios. What they called business as usual emissions is nowhere near business as usual. They made so many errors, but it got through peer review. It did its damage. It's been cited everywhere. We criticized it at the time. They're now having to come back and basically confirm every one of our complaints. But as you said, Jim, the New York Times and all the others covering it say still lend support to the study and its findings. First, they say, well, Now its findings are in line with what others have said. That's not true. It's still higher than almost everybody else has ever projected for losses. But it's not losses, it's reduced economic growth in the future. And if they're so grossly wrong, and it's gross, a 40-something% drop in their estimates, but you can trust their new estimates. Now that they've stripped out Uzbekistan, that's the only problem. Strip that out, and it turns out, it's okay. There's still a 23% losses. No, it's BS, folks. If they make that one mistake and it's had to be withdrawn, don't trust that. Well, what still remains, they must be right about that.
So Sterling, you're a lot more curious. You were a lot more curious about this study than I was. I mean, the notion that people are, plus minus few percent GDP 75 years from now is just absurd. Number one. Number two, let's say it was a legitimate estimate. None of us are going to be alive to see whether it was true. So what's the point? It's just propaganda, right? It's not science. It's not analysis. It's garbage. It always was all of it. Anytime you see somebody making a projection, 100 years, 75, 100 years, even 20, if it can't be verified with in some reasonable way within a reasonable time frame, it's just junk science, to coin a phrase.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, I want to get you in here too. In the show notes here, mentioned, maybe Linnea could bring it up on the screen, but you had shared this with us as well. Remembering when they said that climate change was going to cause a mass extinction, and in fact, Greta's quote of that is actually in our opening theme song there. But it shows that. Let me just read a bit, because you posted about this on What's Up With That. And it mentions here that prominent research studies have suggested that our planet is currently experiencing another mass extinction based on extrapolating extinctions from the past 500 years into the future, and the idea that extinction rates are rapidly accelerating. But a new study by Christian Sabin and John Weens at the University of Arizona Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology revealed that over the last 500 years, extinctions in plants, arthropods, and land vertebrates peaked about 100 years ago and have declined since then. So more shaky science and more Emily Latella. Never mind. You're on mute, Anthony.
Hold it, Jim. Yeah, these people, I was having a conversation with Charles Rotter, my editor-in-chief over at What's Up With That this morning. We were talking about the fact that these people that write these things seem to be completely blind to everything except what they're tunnel visioned on. They're tunnel visioned on completing this paper. They're tunnel visioned on the result and the claim and the headline. But when the reality around them, they don't pay attention to that. I mean, Willis Etchenbach published an essay on What's Up With That over 10 years ago, basically saying, so if all of these animals are going extinct, where are the bodies? We're not seeing, imagine, if you will, say, so we have an oil spill happens around Florida. And of course, the media runs down there and all the waterfowl and so forth that gets oil on them. That's front page news. Oh. So where's the bodies front page news about, some rare, whatchamacallit bird going extinct, and we're finding more and more stories lately in the media of stuff they thought went extinct now being, there it is. Gosh, we didn't realize it was still alive. I can think of at least 3 or 4 instances in the last 5 years where that's happened. They claim extinction, it doesn't happen. Nature finds a way. End of story. It's just junk science.
I wrote about this.
Good term.
I wrote about this more than 30 years ago in my dissertation. All these claims of mass extinction going back to the Ehrlichs. They wrote a whole book. The book is called Extinction. Hundreds of millions of animals are going to go away. It's the fastest rate of extinction since the dinosaurs died when the comet struck the Earth. It's like they've been saying this for years. It's all based on island biogeography, which is, by the way, discussed in this paper. It was never a good fit for any land-based something that's not isolated somewhere where animals can't leave the area when you destroy habitat. What they confirmed is that habitat destruction is still the biggest cause of extinction, some invasive species. But the bottom line is extinction rates are lower now than they have been in 500 years. Climate change is going on all around us, I'm told. It's very alarming. And yet extinction rates are low. We've been told that, as Greta says, we're experiencing mass extinctions. The only mass extinction we're experiencing is the extinction of climate alarm. All the studies that are having to be retracted, all the falsehoods that are being debunked daily at Climate Realism, for instance. I wrote about this in Climate Change Weekly this week. This is just more evidence. But like I said, I was writing about this 30 years ago in my dissertation. We knew that the mass extinction things, I went through all the litany of the different studies that said, this is the rate, this is the rate, this is the rate. None of them confirmed. None of them could be confirmed. We discover new species every year. We discover species that are extinct, as Anthony said, that aren't extinct after all. And we have to guess.
How dare you?
Yeah, it's pure speculation as to how many species exist on Earth. And it's pure speculation as to how many or the rate of extinction of those species. Yeah. So it's, and yet, when they talk about species extinction, you know what they don't ever show? The pictures are never a snail or a small crustacean in a muddy pond, which are where they said most of the extinctions have come as
megafauna,
sea life. Yeah, they show polar bears, which are increasing in number, or other things that people care about. The beautiful big-eyed seals. They show a seal. They say extinction, or they show something
How dare you?
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, I get a lot of those.
The irony of the whole extinction thing is that the Earth is greener now than it has been in the past, thanks to warming and more CO2. And it's so green, even the oceans are turning green because there's more plankton life going on. So there's more fish and other marine life. And there's just no basis to any of this. I mean, I am waiting for someone, and I've been asking this for more than a decade now, please show me some species that carbon dioxide has made extinct.
Steve, what are you talking about? If forests expand and the deserts shrink, then where are the sidewinders going to live? It's going to be a terrible viper apocalypse for those poor little critters.
Save the sidewinders.
Maybe they'll adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like a T-shirt in the making. All right.
Snakes.
Well,
Why did it have to be snakes?
That's another point. So all these people, they love to bring up Darwin and how conservatives, not really on board with Darwin, etc. So if you believe in adaptation, then things can adapt, right? The sidewinders aren't going to go. Everyone's going to adapt.
Right.
Yeah, but they have a view of the world that the world should stay as it is at some point in time that they pick.
Sterling,
right? For the spotted owl, they want it to be like the 1970s, and so no barred owls are going into spotted owl territory and interbreeding. So we got to start shooting a lot of barred owls.
Look, the human species adapted to ice ages, and coming out of ice ages, other animals can do it too. And we didn't have any technology then, so I think everyone can calm down. All right, let's move on. Let's get to a little bit of data. We like to have a little data.
That was our red meat episode, by the way.
Yeah. All right. This is called Chilling Out in November. It is only December 5th. So this is from the Electroverse Substack. Global temps cooled in November. So let's do a quick check of this data. Global temperatures cooled again, according to the latest University of Alabama at Huntsville update. The month came in at 0.43 C versus the 1991 to 2020 mean, down from 0.53 Celsius in October. The steepest cool downs were noted across Australia, which saw a drop from 1.67 C to 0.37 C, the Arctic, which fell from 1.42 C to 0.78 C, and the Southern Hemisphere overall, which cooled from 0.55 C to 0.27 C. Overall, the 2024 Hunga Tonga eruption warming spike continues to unwind, with global temperatures now having fallen roughly half a degree Celsius from the recent peak. Australia now looks, and we have a lot of viewers in Australia, hello over there, now looks to be continuing its cool down into December, at least across the east. A wintry-like blast gripped Victoria, New South Wales, and parts of Queensland on Monday, delivering among the coldest summer temperatures ever logged. Sterling, no other man than this great climate expert Al Roker on the Today Show, assures me that even colder temperatures are the fault of global warming.
Well, everything is the fault of global warming, Jim. That's why they call it global warming and not climate change. Or, I mean, that's why they shifted to climate change rather than global warming. It's hard to say colder temperatures are the fault of global warming. I want to endorse, by the way, the Substack channel Electroverse. They do, if you want to know about what's going on around the world, cold temperature wise, that's the place to go daily. They highlight all the records that are falling, you know, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Europe, the early snows in the Alps, wherever. Great stuff. And he highlights all these places. You know, you never hear about it. New York Times doesn't report on it. The Financial Post in Canada doesn't report on it. When records are falling. Now, I think the Washington Post published a story this week. It was the Post or maybe the New York Times, where you'll see records fall in the next week. Cold weather records. Those cold weather records were set more than 100 years ago. All the CO2 emitted into the atmosphere, all the rise in concentrations, and they're setting new records for cold. I'm sorry, that's not what they said would happen in 1988 when James Hansen first testified before Congress. In fact, they're saying we're going to see the end of snow. Our children won't know what snow looks like. Instead, snow's breaking out all over, cold weather's breaking out all over, and so they just have to change their tune. It's one more claim in the extinction hit list of climate alarmists.
Anthony?
Well, you know, I'm going to use a commonly used phrase to describe what's going on here. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. And they're exactly right about Hunga Tonga. You know, Hunga Tonga threw all of this water vapor into the atmosphere in 2021, 2022. And as we all know, water vapor is the most potent greenhouse gas. Without water vapor, we'd all be in the frozone. And so water vapor keeps the earth comfortable. It also exchanges heat, you know, and all sorts of other things through convection and everything else. So it's super important. But the fact is that big injection of water vapor is now slowly coming out. And if we go back to look at the graph briefly, you can see that just a couple of years ago in the UAH graph, it peaked. And now we're on our way down. Can we bring the graph back up, somebody?
Yep.
Working on it.
Linnea's on it, right?
There we go. Thank you. So look, we have that peak that happened in 2024. Big peak. Biggest peak of the whole, you know, period of measurement back to 1979. So now we're on this slow slide downward. And it mirrors what happened in 1998. Look at that one. That's when we had the monster El Nino. And that monster El Nino warmed the planet up. It was the basis for everyone freaking out and saying, climate change is real, it's happening. Oh no, look at the temperature. But look, it came down. It came down and went below the normal. So the same thing's going to happen here with the water injection from Hunga Tonga that we saw in 2024 peaking out. It's going to dry out. The atmosphere is going to dry out. The temperature's slowly going to come down. Whether it'll come down to previous levels, you know, like what we saw in 2019 or maybe a little further back in 2011 or 2012, I don't know. But the bottom line is that peak, neither of those big peaks on that graph were caused by climate change. And anyone who tells you they were is full of carp.
It's full of carbon emissions.
Full of carp.
Yeah.
Or is it perhaps bull shark?
It's full of methane is what they're full of.
So let me explain to you how cold it is outside. Now, I don't live wherever the average global temperature is. I live in Washington, D.C. And to Washington, D.C. today, the high will be 34 degrees, which is pretty cold. And that 34 degrees is colder than every daily high except for one for this calendar date between 1872 to 1899. Today's 34 degrees will be, 5 degrees lower than, 1 degree lower than the minimum for 150 years ago today. Today's temperature will be 18 degrees below the calendar day average, 41 degrees below the calendar day high. That's how cold it is. And that is despite 150 years of urban heat island effect and emissions and manipulated temperatures and all that. I wonder, how cold is it really outside?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's cold in northwest suburbs of Chicago. It was 14 degrees below normal yesterday. It was 4 degrees at 6 o'clock at night on December 4th. I mean, that's just, but hey, that's called weather. We're having a little cold.
Yeah.
The weather
But we
patterns
must
are
get
making
to
it cold.
net zero because every emission matters.
That's what they say.
It's pretty funny too. I was reading an article this morning working on a post for Climate Realism. It'll probably go up next week, about a World Meteorological Organization report on like the Arab region, talking about how, it's so hot there, everyone's burning up and stuff. And this Financial Times article reporting on it is talking about how all of these heat waves and stuff are due to climate change. And 2024 is because, climate, human-driven climate warming has caused, deadly heat and flooding and also everything else you can imagine across the Arab Peninsula and North Africa and stuff. So they're going on at length. And then towards the end of the article, they say, though this year is probably going to be quite a bit colder because of the natural phenomena of La Nina driving temperatures lower. There is, I word searched on this article. They don't mention El Nino once in the article. So El Nino isn't natural. And that can't be the reason why the spike was high last year. But La Nina is driving temperatures down, extra, and it's natural. What? I hate this stuff. It drives me up a freaking wall. The media is a scourge, honestly.
Here in Dallas, we had a warm October for the most part. We had a warm October. We had a few days that are cold, but it's just December. We haven't entered winter yet. Now in Dallas, we are 10 and 15 degrees below the average temperature. The average temperature right now, Steve brought this up. The average temperature for Dallas at this time is, where is it? The highs can be in the 70s or the 60s. The lows rarely below the 50s. We were in the 30s last night. We were in the 30s. We were in the high 20s 2 nights ago. We were in the 30s night before. It's not Chicago cold. I know that. It's not South Dakota cold where I've lived or Ohio cold where I've lived. But for Dallas, it's pretty cold. It's not average or typical weather. And you'd wonder why that is because, Dallas is not a small city. Like you said, Steve talked about, we have an urban heat island effect here. I'm living in it.
Yeah.
But still, we're well below average temperatures. Just proves once again, it's not emissions, it's weather.
Well, if it gets to 34 degrees here in Northern Illinois again, I'll be out there in my flip-flop and shorts, finishing the shoveling job in my driveway. All right.
I don't need to. You've now imprinted that image on my mind.
Gary.
You didn't need to do that.
I didn't say the only things I'd be wearing would be shorts and flip-flops. Come on. All right. Moving on. Let's see. This is you can put this in the good news from our perspective departments, and that is kind of the theme of today's show. This comes from our friend Joe Nova, and this is the Sierra Club is shedding members. Joe writes, the phase change continues. The Sierra Club loses 60% of members, and 350.org is suspended. She writes, already some U.S. grassroots organizations are having an existential crisis. Actually, the Sierra Club has been struggling for 3 years, but no one wanted to mention that. Francis Menton at the Manhattan Contrarian points out the extraordinary collapse of the largest U.S. environmental group, the Sierra Club. The Sierra Club is in the middle of what might be called an implosion. The New York Times reported on the story on November 7th, and here's an excerpt. The Sierra Club calls itself, quote, the largest and most influential grassroots environmental organization in the country. But it is in the middle of an implosion, left weakened, distracted, and divided, just as environmental protections are under assault by the Trump administration. The group has lost 60% of the 4 million members and supporters it counted in 2019. It has held 3 rounds of employee layoffs since 2022, trying to climb out of a $40 million projected budget deficit. Must be nice. This year, the Trump administration returned better organized and better prepared than its first term. The Sierra Club was the opposite. While Mr. Trump boosted coal power, canceled wind farms, and rolled back pollution limits, the club was consumed by internal chaos, culminating when the board fired its executive director, Ben Jealous, former president of the NAACP.
Ben Jealous? Is that a real name?
That is a real name. I remember him when he was president of the NAACP when I was in the news business. All right. Anyway, Joe goes on.
Anything about climate.
Yeah. Anyway, Joe goes on to note that what we had mentioned a couple of years ago, and that's that 350.org, Bill McKibben's lucrative climate cult project, is lucrative no more. It suspended operations, and surely that suspension, I would think, is going to be permanent. Joe also mentions a piece by our friend Stephen Hayward, who wrote for Civitas, the Civitas Institute, titled The Death Rattle of Apocalyptic Environmentalism. Steve writes, quote, none of the American TV news networks sent reporters to this year's COP down in Brazil, and major print media are rapidly cutting back on climate coverage. A few reporters at the COP down in Brazil filed stories wondering whether this would be the very last COP meeting. I will start with you, Anthony, after that setup. The Sierra Club losing 60% of its members and running a $40 million deficit. By the way, I'll put this up on the screen in a minute, but the Sierra Club reported $173 million of revenue in 2023 and $169 million of revenue in 2024. So don't cry too much of a river for those guys.
I have one comment. All I need to say, really.
Linnea's killing us with these drops. It's great.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Oh, that was it?
That's me.
Oh, boy. Yeah. We shouldn't give everybody the keys to the back end producer.
I'm not on the back end. I've got it right here linked into my microphone.
Oh, great. Anyway, let me just show. There's something here. Let's remove that. Add this to the stage. Yeah, I just wanted to put up here. So Sierra Club, yeah, if they've shed 60% of their members, maybe those members are tired of the Sierra Club focusing on climate alarmism when they thought they were donating to an ecological organization. But you see there that Megan, Steve and Anthony probably are good people to weigh in on this. This idea that our side, that people skeptical of climate alarmism are the ones who are just swimming in big oil money and all this other stuff. This is one organization. This is just the Sierra Club, $169 million, which was down from the previous year. The Heartland Institute's been around for 41 years. I'd have to do the math. I don't think we've raised that much money in 41 years.
Yeah. You could add up all the money that conservative groups get for climate, and it doesn't even come close to just 1 year for the Sierra Club.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, Sierra Club's not the only one. 350.org, multi-million-dollar, lost in a year, just shut down. Greenpeace USA may be shut down soon due to a lawsuit that they lost.
Natural Resources Defense Council is another one, big one.
Yeah. Greenpeace was levied an initial fine of $600 million for their losses. Greenpeace International said, we can't pay that. We're going to fight. They on appeal, it was cut back to I think $400 million. Greenpeace USA may not survive. Now, it's indicative. I think the dollars, people are waking up, but also I think some people who really like these organizations in general think they've left their core missions. Greenpeace used to defend whales. Now they want offshore wind farms that kill whales. Sierra Club used to be about protecting wildlands. Now they're about erecting wind farms and solar facilities, which destroy wildlands. The Audubon Society is supporting wind and solar. I bet they're shedding members and money because they're supporting technologies that are killing birds. When environmental groups with a long history of certain kinds of beliefs start getting into social engineering and social topics that's not really in their wheelhouse, people who've always supported them start to pull away. Look, about a decade and a half ago, Sierra Club got into the immigration debate, and there was a huge split. Directors had to leave because they joined with conservatives, wanted to stop immigration because all these immigrants were coming in and taking up our land, and we got to preserve this land. So it does not hurt my soul to see the decline of all these organizations. I only wish that decline in membership would be matched by a big drop in funding like it has with 350.org.
Yeah. I mean, I used to joke that they spend more on catering than the entire, their events than we do as entire organizations. It's pretty outrageous. All right. So let's get to what I would call our main topic today, and that is the end of the climate cult. On this show, a lot of our fans come into the chat as much as an hour early to start exchanging their thoughts and saying hi to each other. And I saw early on in the chat that some were talking about that they don't think that this is the end of the climate cult, but that has been making the news today. And the prompting for this was a piece in The Spectator by Matt Ridley that's gotten a lot of attention, and it was titled "The End of the Climate Cult." Again, we've been using that theme on this show for quite a while, especially in the last year since the 2024 election. And I'm gonna read from this, and you're gonna hear a lot of what, if you're a regular listener or viewer of this program, a lot of this is gonna sound very, very familiar. But it's a very good piece. I will after the show, I'll put the links to all of this in the description, so you can read these things for yourself. It's definitely worth doing it. But this is pretty fun. Let me read from it for you. Finally, thankfully, the global warming craze is dying out. To paraphrase Monty Python, the climate parrot may still be nailed to its perch at the recent COP summit in Belém, Brazil, or at Harvard or on CNN, but elsewhere it's dead. It's gone to meet its maker. Kick the bucket, shuffled off this mortal coil, run down the curtain and join the choir invisible. By failing to pledge a cut in fossil fuels, COP achieved less than nothing. The venue caught fire, the air conditioning malfunctioned, and delegates were told on arrival not to flush toilet paper. Bill Gates's recent apologia, in which he conceded that global warming, quote, will not lead to humanity's demise, after he closed the policy and advocacy office of his climate philanthropy group, is just the latest nail in the coffin. In October, the Net Zero Banking Alliance shut down after JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, and Goldman Sachs led a stampede of other banks out the door. Shell and BP have returned to being oil companies to the delight of their shareholders. Ford is about to cease production of electric pickups that nobody wants. Hundreds of other companies are dropping their climate targets. Australia has backed out of hosting next year's climate conference. According to an analysis by the Washington Post, it's not just Republicans who have given up on climate change. The Democratic Party has stopped talking about it, hardly mentioning it during Kamala Harris's campaign for president last year. The topic has been dropped to the bottom half of a table of 23 concerns among Swedish youths, Greta's home country. Even the European Parliament has voted to exempt many companies from reporting rules that require them to state how they are helping to fight climate change. It has been a long, lucrative ride. Predicting the eco-apocalypse has always been a profitable business, spawning subsidies, salaries, consulting fees, air miles, bestsellers, and research grants. Different themes took turns as the scare du jour: overpopulation, oil spills, pollution, desertification, mass extinction, acid rain, the ozone layer, nuclear winter, falling sperm counts. Each faded as the evidence became more equivocal, the public grew bored, and in some cases, the problem was resolved by a change in the law or practice. But no scare grew as big or lasted as long as global warming. The activists who took over the climate debate, often with minimal understanding of climate science, competed for attention by painting ever more catastrophic pictures of future global warming. Quote, I'm talking about the slaughter, death, and starvation of 6 billion people this century. That's what the science predicts, said Roger Hallam, founder of Extinction Rebellion in 2019, though the science says no such thing. Scientists knew that pronouncements like this were nonsense, but they turned a blind eye because the alarm kept the grant money coming. Now, the alarmist scare is fading. A scramble for the exits is beginning among the big environmental groups, and donations are drying up. And this, I just want to read the concluding paragraph by the great Matt Ridley. The climatastrophe has been a terrible mistake. It diverted attention from real environmental problems, cost a fortune, impoverished consumers, perpetuated poverty, frightened young people into infertility, wasted years of our time, undermined democracy, and corrupted science. It's time to bury the parrot. Now, as I said, thank you for your indulgence and your attention to this matter. I really enjoyed reading that, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Steve, well, all of us on this podcast, well, most of us, 3 of the 5 have been in the climate policy game for a very long time. Steve, there is nothing in that story that you have not heard before, but it must have been nice to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. I don't really think they're going away. I mean, they are having difficulty. They've been having difficulty for the last couple of years, and we've all talked about that a lot. They have a lot invested in this, right? They're still at $500 billion worth of Green New Scam money. You know, China has got a dog in this fight. We were just laughing about the Sierra Club. You know, their donations going from like, 173 million down to 169 million. They still have a lot of money. You know, they have taken big hits, big losses, but they got plenty of resources. And I think it's just a matter of time before they come back. If we get a Democrat president in 2028, then, you know, all this stuff is going to come rushing back. So, you know, I'm not counting my chickens yet. I know that we've got a long fight ahead of us. You know, maybe it's in a bit of a swoon right now, but they'll come roaring back.
Yep. Sterling, you wanted to get in here?
Yeah, well, you know, it's not just the story you quoted by Matt Ridley that's doing this. But the Los Angeles Times posted a story today. It was also published in Newsweek. I don't know where it appeared first. Now, you got to remember, the Los Angeles Times more than a decade ago said they would never, ever allow a climate skeptic to publish in their paper again. There was no question about climate alarm. There was no question that humans were destroying the environment. They would never take letters to the editor. They wouldn't take editorials. That was their stance. And now we see this, the welcome demise of climate change, climate catastrophism. And it goes through this litany of horribles that Ridley went through, looks at some different ones. Now, I share Steve's concern that this might not be the permanent demise, but no environmentalism, as far as I can tell, has ever been the permanent demise. He and I have both been around long enough to see lots of different things be hyped as the next big scare. Climate change is a good one for them because, well, climate's always changing. So it's a control knob for everything. Not everything, not all the other causes. But if they move off them, you know, if climate change, if a stake is finally driven through its heart, and we won't know that for a few years. We may not know it until after the next presidential election. But they start moving, they're going to start shifting to another cause of climate change. They can't resurrect it. And the public polls shows there's very little appetite for resurrecting it. They've hardly moved the needle with 30 years of propaganda for the public's concern. The public doesn't want to pay for it. The same people that believed it before believe it now, though a few less of them. And so the question is, someone raised, well, if climate change goes away over in the comment section, what's next? Well, we're already seeing some of it. Microplastics, they're killing us. Chemicals, some of the stuff that's coming out of the NIH scares me when it comes to chemicals. We can't have colored cereals anymore because Evidently, they've been killing our children for 70 years, and we just didn't know it. You know, the Fruit Loops I ate when I was a kid. I guess I'm due for cancer anytime. But the point is, they'll always have something. There'll always be some disaster for these people to grab onto and take your money. The question is whether climate change will make the comeback and be the big thing it was. And the one reason for thinking it might is because, you know, you can get rid of the color in cereals. You can fix plastics, solve that, clean it up. You can't control the climate. And that's what they say they need to do. So they can always come back to it. So anyway, like I said, that story that Jim read, Matt Ridley, it's not the only one that's recognizing this, right?
Oh, no.
Skepticism, what we've been championing for decades, it's breaking out all over.
Anthony?
Yeah, and you know, it's the nature of humanity to fear something unknown in the future. I've seen this happen time and time again. You can go back and look, you know, to pre-modern times, and people feared all sorts of catastrophes, you know, happening to them. Actually, some of them were real, you know. But the point is that there always seems to be this fear of catastrophe in the future. It seems to be ingrained into us as if it's some sort of a defense mechanism that's built into our, you know, our genes, our makeup. But the bottom line is that almost every kind of future catastrophe imaginable that we've seen come into the media and into the scientific literature over the past century has not occurred. I mean, you go look at what happened with, you know, the fear of extinction and the food crisis back in the 70s. You know, that never happened. And yet the guy who published on this, Ehrlich, he won't even admit that he was wrong, even though it never materialized, because guess what? It was peer reviewed.
I like to point out, Anthony is 100% right. They've always done this.
I've never had that happen. Thank you. Thank you.
150 years ago, people stood on the street corners with placards saying, "Repent, the end is near." And sane people crossed the streets to avoid them. It was always the same problem. Human sin, in this case, in modern times, it's the sin of using fossil fuels, of development. In the old times, it was different kinds of sin, but it was the same. Repent, the end is near, humans are at fault, and there's a path forward. And now we invite these same placard-wielding people, these same screamers, to testify in the halls of Congress rather than avoiding them, or at the UN if they want to, if they're a 16-year-old, then 16 or 15-year-old youth, because we all know youths know more about everything than anybody else. Just ask
Anthony, when Ehrlich wrote Population Bomb, do you know what his specialty, his academic specialty was?
I don't know.
It was butterflies. He's a butterfly scientist. And then he got the chance to write this book, and he, no one pointed that out at the time. He was always a fool. It was always stupid. And I mean, you're right. People will always, there's just this permanent catastrophist element to society. But what was different about climate is it developed this political agenda. The environment used to just be, like Sterling was said, people cared about the environment, but then it became politicized. And the politicization is what made it this huge force. It got at the $1 trillion, out of the Inflation Reduction Act, and got it to the UN, and all the different agendas just sort of melded together to push the politics of it.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I know you're more skeptical than I am about, the end is near for the climate cult or the climate cult's in decline. I get that.
Well, they're not going to go. The left is not going away. Okay.
Right.
I mean, the left is there to implement the left's agenda. This has been tremendously successful. So it's had a burp for, the past year or so, but it will come back. I'm seeing it right now in the Washington Post. This week, there's a big article about phthalates. Phthalates are chemicals used in plastics. And we debunked this 25 years ago, but they just recycle this stuff because Gen Zers have never heard of any of this stuff.
Well, that's my point. Like, you don't have to reorganize all of society because of microplastics. You have to reorganize all of society because carbon dioxide emissions by humans are causing a climate catastrophe from which we'll never recover. That theory is being fully debunked. And when you see mainstream or legacy media outlets finally allowing other people to say so publicly, that has an effect. I mean, climate catastrophism has had such a firm grip on our politics and our pop culture, on our societies, and I see that grip loosening. If not, they're not going to drop it all at once. But when you see that story I mentioned, how like Europe is now realizing net zero we're never going to get there. We're going to be thrown out of here with pitchforks and torches if we keep this up. It's not a winning political message anymore. It's going to be abandoned. It's starting to happen now. I think that's worth celebrating.
Yeah. Well, look, the European leadership has not given up on climate. All those guys that were part of the Net Zero Banking Alliance, they have not given up on climate. The car companies have not. Go to their websites. They have not given up on the hoax. And they're going to wait till, there's a December day in Chicago when it's 90 degrees. Or whatever the maximum is for Chicago. That will happen. And they're going to see, we were right.
Yeah.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
I think that's to some extent right, what he just said, commie. So people, when I first started doing this, they were talking about watermelons, right? Green on the outside, red on the inside. It's really about power. I always defended the communists against this claim because I had read Marx as part of my dissertation, and I knew that he wouldn't have been an environmentalist at all. For Marx, there were two things: people and resources. And if you weren't a people, you were a resource for use by people. So it's a weird kind of communism. It's one that takes the environment as more important, but really it's just the elites. It's people see this as a way of torquing power. And if they can no longer gain power on the back of climate fears, they will find another cause.
What I find frustrating, what I've always found frustrating about this particular worldwide grift is, there are environmental issues that are real and that aren't just real, but have a immediate physical solution that could be implemented. Like the Asian trash problem and stuff. If they devoted a quarter of the money that they, swallowed up for the green blob towards solving those types of problems, just like get a whole bunch of sieves. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but you can clean it up. They could have had some of these real issues solved, but then of course, once it's solved, there's no further funding, right? So the best scam in the world is the climate scam because there is no solution, actually. There is no end to it.
Well, Reagan recognized this way back when that you create an agency to solve a problem and it never ends. The problem is never solved. It just grows and grows and grows, and often with mission creep, right? HUD was supposed to solve the housing crisis. Anyone think the housing crisis has been solved after 60 years? All the different agencies, the alphabet agencies, you pick one, not one that was formed to solve a particular problem has ever solved that problem. In fact, since the time they were formed, the problem has only grown worse.
Yeah. I just want to underscore what Linnea said. We do have real environmental problems in this country. In Southern California, they've got Mexico dumping 50 million gallons of raw sewage into Southern California every day. That would seem to be a pretty easy fix. Virtually every city in this country has.
Yeah, we just get Trump to bomb Mexico. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
There goes our chances of remonetizing.
A lot of cities in this country have serious stormwater, wastewater problems. We have groundwater. We have all sorts of real problems. None of it gets addressed because there's no money or attention. All the money and attention goes to the climate hoax.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll wrap this up. We'll get to Q&A, but it wasn't that long ago that we had John Kerry worrying about the war in Ukraine, not about people dying, but about its carbon footprint and floating out ideas that we're going to have electric tanks and troop carriers and stuff like that. I mean, so that kind of madness is now falling away, and I think a lot of other madness is going to start falling away as well.
You can't have electric tanks without having an ever-ready charger truck coming up behind the tanks,
Yeah. Right. All right. Great conversation. And thank you everybody in the chat. We have tons of questions to get to. But before we do that, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this here program, and that is our friends at Advisor Metals. If you listen to a lot of conservative shows on YouTube like I do, you hear tons of pitches for buying gold and silver and other precious metals. And there are so many companies out there where you can purchase those things. But I want to tell you why you should trust our sponsor, Advisor Metals, and that's the man who runs the company, Ira Brashatsky. Ira is the managing member of Advisor Metals. He does not employ those high-pressure tactics or deceptive marketing ploys like many of them in big gold. He also doesn't deal in so-called rare coins. When you buy gold and other precious metals from Advisor Metals, you are dealing in quality bullion, and that is so much better when the time comes to liquidate this valuable physical asset. And when you buy from Advisor Metals, you will have your investment sent discreetly to your very home. And also, good to point out that Ira isn't advertising on this program because he is an America First patriot. He does not donate to Democrats. He refuses to work with the proxies of the Communist Chinese Party. And he, like us, abhors the machinations and schemes of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. That is why we are so proud to have him as a sponsor. So if you want to diversify your investment portfolio, or if you want to back up your IRA with real physical bullion of precious metals, go to climaterealismshow.com/metals. You can leave your information there, and Ira or someone on his team will be in contact to make the process very easy for you. Again, that's climaterealismshow.com/metals, and be sure to tell them who sent you, because that helps us while you are helping yourself. Thank you for your attention to this very important matter. All right. It is time for Q&A. Take it away, Linnea.
Andy's not here, and you still managed to hit the drop. All right.
I did manage to hit the drop, even with Andy not here. Just for you.
Okay, let me grab a couple more here. We didn't have a whole lot of questions, but we did have a whole lot of funny comments, which I definitely want to highlight because our audience is hilarious. So one of the questions that we did get was from Darren T, who said, "Will the retracted stuff make the mainstream?" What I think they mean by that is, will all the retracted articles and whatnot actually hit mainstream media the way that they hit mainstream media when they were released in the first place?
Well, some of them already have, right? The New York Times did have to cover the retraction that they had touted.
Yeah, but it's not much of a retraction, Sterling. I mean, it's right. I mean, it's. I mean, no, they'll have to retract everything, and there's not enough ink or bytes to do that.
Yeah, and I've yet to see anybody. I could be wrong because I haven't tracked every mainstream media outlet, but I've yet to see any mainstream media outlet cover the study that shows extinctions are not going on.
Yeah.
Or the study that I covered this week that Greenland temperatures were warmer in the past than they are at present, that they warmed up in the 1920s and 30s faster than they warmed up in the latter half of the century. I haven't seen any coverage of that.
The Climate Realism show will have to go on indefinitely. Yes.
You're welcome. Okay. We're going to start funneling money to the Sierra Club just so we have something to talk about into the future. Curious KL, who I don't think I've seen in our chat before, so welcome, said, what about winters caused by massive volcano eruptions? Is that something that we should be worried about? Or is that something that the climate cult would ever
maybe talking winter, about an extended global winter?
Yeah, they can make it cooler. Mount Pinatubo in 1991 caused some global cooling. I guess the big one was Krakatoa in 1815, 1816, mass global cooling. If we got a couple of those, we would be in serious trouble.
But it would be temporary. But it would be temporary. It would be for a couple of years.
We
Only
know
some people would die.
Yeah. Those cooling events in part because of volcanic eruptions, in part because of like the Little Ice Age and stuff kind of doubling down on it, are major causes of plague and famine and all sorts of awful stuff. So that's definitely, I would much rather some warming. So is the consensus gone based on that article that said that things are up for debate?
Yeah. Well, there never was a consensus, right? I mean, there's no consensus in science. But the consensus she's talking about, those people they're hardcore. They're still there. Yeah. Bill Gates still believes that climate is a thing. Bjorn Lomborg still believes climate is a thing. All these people, Al Gore, they all still believe climate's a thing. The consensus is real.
And this
Bill Gates, he came out with his article and said, "Oh, it's not the biggest disaster." But I just saw headlines today that he's one of the guys pushing. Well, it's not a disaster, but what we need to do is to put a lot of pollution into the air to block the sun. He's one of the big backers of that crap. And his big what's this article? It just popped up while I was online. Oh yeah, he backs modern hydrogen to fight climate change. You got to have hydrogen energy. His company just went bankrupt. They're laying off people. So
I want to highlight this very important comment from Chris Nesbitt, who is a very frequent viewer and commenter of ours. He says, Linnea needs to give Jim a lesson or two on how to do the perfect segue. So true. I'm really good at my segues into the ad read on the.
I do have to step up my
game. We're going to teach him how to do that if he can't remember to unmute his microphone.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not capable of that.
All right. This is a rhetorical question that I thought you guys would get a kick out of. CHBE says, "Oh, come on. Don't you know climate change caused November's cooling?" Yep, sure did. All right. DJ Bo, another frequent viewer, says, "November was cool. Anybody want to bet me that the usual suspects will be out by Christmas saying it was one of the hottest Novembers ever? They already are."
Yeah.
Yeah, they say it's like the third hottest since the 1980s or something.
A serious question. How do they get those numbers? I mean, what is the justification for saying that? Because they have said it and it hasn't been true. I mean,
well, you can look at Roy Spencer's his satellites, and it as far as how he calculates it was a warm November, but of course it's been warming for the last 20,000 years. So.
All right, got a couple of good science questions some of which I'm going to pitch to you, Anthony. Joe Tripp, who I don't think I've seen in our chat before, said, "Will the Earth's weakening magnetic field have an effect on climate?"
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it just doesn't. A weakening magnetic field has been something that's happened, all throughout Earth's entire history. It's just not something that affects our weather or our climate in the short term in any significant way. So what does it do? Well, it does provide less, when we have a weaker magnetic field, we have more cosmic rays that come in. And there's a theory that says, well, we might get more cloud cover, low-level cloud cover because of that. But that hasn't actually been proven. There's been people that have been looking for that for about a decade or so now and still haven't completely found it. But there's no direct correlation between weather and Earth's magnetic field or a 30-year climate period in Earth's magnetic field. And the magnetic field has flipped before during Earth's history, and everything survived.
If sometime in the future the magnetic field completely goes away, we'll be in trouble because we'll be bombarded by deadly cosmic rays. It'll look like Mars. Our atmosphere, the magnetic field keeps our atmosphere in place. So, but that's not happening now. It's nowhere near happening now.
All right, this question from David, who I also don't think I've seen. We have a lot of new people today, so welcome all the new people. Was the water vapor of Hunga Tonga more to blame for affecting the climate than carbon dioxide emitted?
Absolutely, absolutely, because water vapor has an immediate effect on temperature. The more water vapor you have, the more heat is retained in Earth's atmosphere. And anyone can prove this to themselves simply by spending a day, in Atlanta in the summer, in the evening, versus in Tucson. The drier atmosphere in Tucson allows temperatures to plummet at night. Much cooler at night in Tucson than it is in Atlanta. You might have a high in Atlanta of 92 and a low of 77, whereas in Tucson, you might have the same high of 92, but a low of 45. And so, water vapor immediately affects things. And yeah, it was the reason for the spike.
All right. Oh, that's David again. Let me try to get someone else. Already got that one. Okay. Kurtz says, what are you going to do with all of the scrapped wind turbine blades after failure or their lifespan? Guess throw it in a volcano or what? Hey, that'd be a pretty good idea.
It might be a better solution. It might be a better solution than what they have now, which is stacking them up in fields in West Texas and just blighting the earth, letting them rot, soak their over time. Their wear soaks the trash into the soil and the chemicals into the soil. Maybe the volcano idea is not a bad plan.
It's a perfect plan. I mean, it gets rid of them, and it gives you a sacrifice to their climate god, the Earth, right? It's absolutely perfect. I am for that 100%.
And I kind of just want to see what happens if you throw one in.
Yeah, that's cool.
I learned recently that you don't actually, and I should have known this with my geology background, but I just never thought about it. You don't sink in lava if you jump in lava, which is kind of sad. You just catch on fire and die.
Which is also sad.
Which is also sad. Okay, Jerry Palmer says, rule number 1, everything is due to carbon dioxide. Rule number 2, if not, rule number 1 applies. Yeah.
That is how science seems to work now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm going to use that.
Lake Lady says, so as climate change slowly walks off into the sunset, what money-making grifting scheme is next on the horizon? Steve, if you're wrong, and if the climate thing does fade, what are they going to use as the next thing to continue their nonsense?
It's simple. I mean, they're just going to go back to the scares they had before. They used to be water pollution, air pollution, chemicals. Now you even have the Trump administration trying to scare people about chemicals. Robert F. Kennedy and the whole Mahais, against pesticides. I think they have to physically restrain him on that. But you hear this from Trump administration officials at Marty McCary, all those guys. They're constantly talking about chemicals. The crazy woman that they want to make Surgeon General. She's all freaked out about chemicals and pesticides. So they'll just go back to their old playbook, and then climate will come back at some point.
They'll go back to fears of radiation as new nuclear plants are built.
Right. Well,
they'll go back to the chemo folks will come out of the woodwork again or gain prominence. And they already have the stuff with microplastics, right? That's the plastic stuff.
Yeah.
You remember when the movie The Graduate.
When you say the chemo folks, are you talking about the chemtrail people?
Not just.
No,
we're not going to trigger you with that one today, Anthony.
But,
I will tell you this.
Back in the late 60s, there was a movie called The Graduate, and the father of the woman said, remember this, plastics, it's the future, plastics. Well, now they're trying to take away the future, right? The future became present, and it's been successful. It's made our lives so much better, and now they're trying to rob us of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right.
There's always a scare in the future.
Yeah. Question from Stephen, who says, are any of you familiar with Woodbury's book, The Great White Mantle?
Nope.
Not I. Sorry.
Nope.
CL Palmer asks, I saw a video recently that carbon dioxide at current levels still impacts temperature due to its existence at various levels in the atmosphere. Thoughts?
Well, yes, carbon dioxide does affect our temperature, but in a minimal way. It's very clear. We've got a graph. In fact, if you go to climateataglance.com, or buy our book, Climate at a Glance. It talks all about that. It tells you why carbon dioxide does, in fact, affect the temperature, but why it's minimal, and why increases in carbon dioxide will have less and less effect as you go on and on. It's all covered in our book, Climate at a Glance, which you can get on Amazon for the incredibly high price of $14.95. And I challenge you to find a book packed with so much information for that price. I mean, you look at some of Michael Mann's books and some of these other books, and they're, in the $40, $50 range. Ours is a bargain. And once you get the book, you can download a digital copy of it. There's a QR code on the inside where you can download a digital copy, and you can share it with your friends. This makes a great stocking stuffer to put in the stockings of your liberal friends, and it will drive them batshit crazy.
Yeah. It's concise. It's concise and accurate, so you can read it in a single sitting.
But I just wasn't. We all agree. I mean, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It does have a warming effect. The controversy, the global warming controversy, though, is what is the effect of emissions? And there is a theoretical, hypothetical, impact of emissions, and there's what we can actually observe, measure, discern, which is zero. And that's really the controversy. It's not about whether carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. It is. But what do the emissions, add to the equation?
And I'm not sure. The question said something about where it lies in the atmosphere making a difference. I'm not sure of that. Earlier they were talking about, I saw in the comment section, someone talked about the hole in the ozone that disappeared. Let's be clear. There was never a hole in the ozone. There was a thinning of the ozone layer in certain areas of the Earth. That thinning has slackened, but there was never a hole in the ozone. And ozone, ground level ozone, no different in a sense than upper level ozone, has gone down in recent decades. Should we be concerned about that? Probably not. No one seems to like ground level ozone, but why that didn't drift to the upper atmosphere, no one's ever successfully explained to me. Why it doesn't break, why it breaks up or doesn't get to the upper atmosphere and then fill our hole. But there was never a hole. There was a thinning.
This is a good joke from Redneck Screwloose, who said, "Do y'all hear the news? The Obama library burned down. They lost both coloring books." That's pretty good. Mars Rock, who I've not seen in a while, hello Mars Rock, asked on Rumble, "Is climate catastrophism declining at the United Nations?"
Nope, it's on its way up. I mean, remember last year the oceans were boiling.
How much worse could it get? They'll find a way.
The less climate catastrophism is feared and believed in outside the UN, the harder they fight for it within the UN. They cling. I think it was Hillary that talked about, or Obama that talked about stubbornly clinging to their God and their guns. Well, this is the UN's God and guns. They stubbornly cling to climate change regardless of the evidence.
Yeah, it would have been great if they had had a camera on Antonio Guterres' face as Trump was ripping climate a new one in September at the UN. That would have been awesome to watch.
Yeah, did you see that United Nations Geneva post on Twitter? I retweeted it, but it was a quote from Guterres where he was saying, "The United Nations is a moral compass for the world." And my mind's just flashing back to dudes with guns and blue helmets. And
I'm looking for a vomit drop here, but I don't have one.
What? Of Syria and Iran on their Human Rights Commission, something like that. It's like, that's the moral compass? In Iran, they had a small child lop off a head in public yesterday or the day before. Jeez, that's the moral compass?
JPS says, "Greetings from Belgium. Hasn't it been proven that first temperatures go up and CO2 follows centuries later?"
Yes.
That's what the proxy data shows historically. If you look at the historical record, that great graphic that Al Gore likes to use, hundreds of thousands of years, if you parse it out, every one of those increases in temperature precedes the increase in CO2.
Yeah, and I think part of the explanation for that is off-gassing from oceans. But
Yep.
yeah.
Well,
And there was never any positive feedback loop from that. So go figure.
yeah, if you splice in some tree ring data in there, you'll make it work.
Yeah.
Selected tree ring data, Jim. Selected tree ring data.
Like this, right?
That is an
Not,
expert.
not
only
anything from
joke.
Griffo.
That's a joke our audience definitely gets.
Yeah, most of our audience. Okay, Ian McMillan says, yet they write off water vapor as merely a feedback, and I wanted to comment on that. And that's because water vapor in lower levels of the atmosphere, like closer to the ground level, falls out as precipitation eventually. But the reason why Hunga Tonga has such a big effect is because it blasted that stuff up into upper levels of the atmosphere. So it's a little bit of a different condition. It takes a little bit longer for it to fall out. Let's see. Walter says, have you ever thought to invite Lee Zeldin on the Climate Realism show? Would love to invite Lee Zeldin on the Climate Realism show if he'd have us. That would be fun.
Or
Maybe
Chris
I'll try to
Wright.
reach out.
Or Chris
Or
Wright.
Chris Wright.
Yeah, I mean, a great pitch for us
He's
is that
a
we did cover.
lukewarmer.
Yeah, well, we did cover his confirmation hearing live. You were on that, Steve. You know, we
I
said
was. He's a
that was fun.
lukewarmer.
Oh, geez. All right, you won't be on that day with him. Jeez.
We let lukewarmers on this show too. Let's go. Oh, how about this one? David says, why is everything existential to these people?
Doom, man, doom.
But
Themselves.
because they don't understand what the term existential means.
No, they do. They do. They think it scares the
Kant-
most people.
Kant was one of the first people to start talking about existential, and it doesn't mean what they think it means. You read Kant.
Well, it's kind of annoying to hear them use the word unprecedented for every single thing that ever happens too. So
Again, I mean,
all of them being precedented.
yeah,
yeah, it all goes.
wildly precedented.
You have to be apocalyptic in order to get your way with these people. I mean, you can't just, because they're going to lose the argument if they say, you know, it would be better. You can't make the green energy transition argument because nobody will accept that, because nuclear and fossil fuels are necessary and better, more efficient and cheaper. All the things, every plus is on the traditional energy generation side. Unless you get catastrophic about everything and the reasons for going to green, you would never win an argument. And that's why they're actually ultimately losing, I think, right now.
Here's a good question, I think, for Steve, probably. Where can one learn more? This is from Terry, by the way. Where can one learn more about phthalates? If that's
Okay,
right,
well,
fact-based,
yeah.
unsensationalized manner.
So Terry, I just tweeted about this the other day because there was that Washington Post article. So if you search for phthalates from my X account at Junk Science, you'll get some links and you can start there. The chemical industry stopped defending all this stuff more than a generation ago. So, I'm going to be the source on that.
Chris says, I came late. Did you cover the study that reckoned sea level rise was not accelerating? If true, wouldn't that mean sea isn't warming and ice is not melting at the claim rates either? And I think we covered that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we did. And you can find out about that in my book.
I'm going to have to make Anthony, you're going to have to do the ad reads from now on, because your ability to segue right into it is much better than me.
Thank you.
You should get one of those miracle cleaners, get one ad contract for that.
Anthony,
yeah, I'm coming up with Climate ShamWow next.
Anthony's the new ShamWow guy. Yeah.
Joe Esther asks, Denmark is still killing cows and attacking farmers using Bovar. How to convince the government to back out of Bovar usage? I would say just if the climate scam ends, then there's no reason for them to be pushing a methane reducer in cow feed.
I think riots in the streets, manure being dumped in front of their personal houses, and people being replaced with different politicians that understand that you're killing an entire industry in that country.
Isn't that Bill Gates's thing?
I don't know if it's Bill Gates's one. He has a different. I think he's still in development with one. This might be a different one.
I think Beauvais is. It's one of his.
Oh, is it?
I believe so. Yeah.
I don't know. They're all the same.
Climate scam is going to last in Europe. The last place it's going to go away is in Europe, because in Europe, they're not allowed to think. They just follow the leader.
Very sad. My dog is making her presence known as usual at this time of day. This is from Stephen Lindsay, who says, anyone aware of the creeping up of total solar irradiance now going above or close to 1363 watts per square meter? Anthony?
Well, yeah, it happens. The solar cycle changes the solar irradiance on average of anywhere from 1 watt per square meter to as much as 2.5 over its period. And so there's nothing surprising here or dangerous about it. Summing it up, sun happens.
Our good friend engineer
you can find
guy.
out about it in my book.
Yeah. Our good friend engineer guy wants to know, and Steve, I don't know if you know of anything about this, but he asks, what about styrofoam? 30 years ago, I heard a lecture on the benefits of styrofoam. I'm not sure in what use. You'd never know it, as media does not cover this message.
Well, so conveniently, I have this red Solo cup here, which apparently contains styrofoam, and it's why where I live in Montgomery County, Maryland, stores are not allowed to sell these because they're not recyclable, because they have styrofoam. So there you go.
Except for one, I want to say first, Linnea, you were right. I looked. I was interested. I thought Gates was involved with Beauvais, but he's not. He's developing his other thing. He's a promoter, but he's not an investor. But styrofoam is recyclable. Decades ago, about 3 decades ago, McDonald's came up with styrofoam cartons, and they talked about the hot side hot, the cold side cold. Styrofoam is a great insulator.
Hey,
because people were complaining, they came up with a way to recycle it. And as they came up with that way, the pressure on them got so great, they shelved their invention. Nobody recycles styrofoam now, but it is recyclable. But the people who invented it can't sell it anywhere.
I love that burger, by the way. You had the hot burger and the hot cheese on one side. On the other side, you had the other top part of the bun and the lettuce and tomato and the
cool
pickle, which remained cool, so that you didn't end it up with this mishmash of melted stuff that had been sitting around.
No, they decided not to fight it. It was easier for them not to fight it, and they shelved the technology.
Yeah, the McDLT, that was awesome.
I like to recycle styrofoam in my outdoor fire pit. Works real well. Back in the atmosphere.
That's
I
breaking.
love the smell of burning styrofoam in the evening.
That's breaking clean air laws.
I found out the hard way that a outside rug that I had that I thought was actual thistle or whatever it is, sisal, whatever it is that they make those scratchy, terrible rugs. I thought that it was real, and I threw it in my fire pit because it was getting raggedy and old. Wrong. I had black smoke.
If you do it one at a time, though,
my grandfather used to have a trailer at a lake near here that I loved. It's my favorite place to go. And he had a burn barrel, right? He had a burn barrel that we threw all the trash in the burn barrel because there was no sanitation out there.
Wait a minute. Is that Jason Alexander?
That is Jason Alexander with the McDLT, baby.
Hot side hot, the cold side cold. So we used to burn all sorts of plastics in those things and stand around it and watch it. We'd watch straws melt very slowly. We thought the curling was really cool, me and my brother. So only to find out later that we were killing ourselves because the chemicals that.
Damn, I'm hungry now.
I know. Look at what they took from us, you guys.
But I don't want to dance.
That is a lot of fuss for a hamburger, I gotta say.
No, but it's the container that's important.
Right.
Yeah. They weren't selling the hamburger. They were selling the hamburger sold in that container.
Amazing. All righty. Let's go to, we'll hit another science question here and we'll probably wrap it up, guys. We're going a little over our overtime. Paul says, is the cloud cover included in any of the climate models?
Yes, but it's not included well. The problem is you can't predict clouds. Clouds are one of the most dynamic and random things that occurs on the planet. And the models are particularly bad at simulating how cloud cover will change. And so, yes, it's there, but it's not there in a significant way that is accurate.
And even the IPCC says it's one of the factors, the vast majority of those factors, that it says they don't understand it very well. Poorly understood is how they rate it.
Right.
Yep. And then finally, we will end with CHB's question. I sense a lack of taxpayer money heading these grifters' way. Am I right? Hopefully.
No, there's still $500 billion to spend the Green New Scam money. And then China's got plenty of money to spend on this because it's a great way to checkmate our economy. So I'm telling you, these people are not going away.
Well,
I look forward to the day then we could all sing "Ding Dong, the grift is dead."
There you go. even the big beautiful bill, right? It cut a lot of that money.
Yeah,
there's less money going to it now than there was before, but it increased funding for carbon capture and storage.
Yeah,
and which is interesting because the increased money that they increased it for wasn't for storage; it's for oil companies that were already making money from carbon capture because it helps them pump out more oil. To use that technology more. So they increased that. Billions of taxpayer dollars going to a technology that had been being used for decades already at a profit for them. But now they make more money on tax credits.
Not to drag this out, but I got to add on to that just real quick. I was on the radio in Louisiana yesterday. Apparently Doug Burgum is coming to Louisiana to sell carbon capture.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me. He loved it when he was in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put a stop to that. If we have anything to do with that. So anyway, that will wrap it up for our show today. I want to thank our special guest today, Steve Milloy from junkscience.com. I know everybody loves it when you're on the program, Steve, mostly. And I want to thank our studio partners, which includes junkscience.com, CFAC, the CO2 Coalition, and Climate Depot. What's up with that? And Heartland UK Europe. Always visit climaterealism.com, where you can get the counterspin to the climate alarmist narrative that we even read a little bit on the program today. Go to climateataglance.com for the latest updates on climate data. But even better than that, go to amazon.com and search for Climate at a Glance and get the latest 4th edition, I believe it is, but you'll get that latest one. Go to Energy at a Glance, and of course, always go to heartland.org, where you can support this program, and heartland.org/TCRS. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for being here today. Thanks for everybody who watches and listens and appreciates the show every week. And we will talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.